Hey friends, it's Jeff. TJ couldn't join us, but I'm here with the Sarina Sherring. Sarina is our friend from Australia. She's the founder of Reflect the Original, where she does coaching and leadership development, and she's the co-host of the 9 Design Enneagram podcast, which for my money has the best Enneagram logo out there. Sarina, it's good to talk to you. I'm glad that you're back.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you too, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
We are playing 20 questions where we just come with questions for one another. And my first is obvious. In your view, what is the best accent and why is the correct answer Australian?
Oh, you know what, Jeff? I may not answer the way you want me to. I may not say Australian because the Australian accent, sorry, we could tangent on this, but if you are in the top end of Australia, so if you are like Queensland, they sound very different to, say, you know, in the bottom, Victoria, Tasmania, over to the left, over in Adelaide. So you get nuance, and I feel like
there's variations.
There is. I feel like the more north you are, the more Aussie. A word we use is bogan. I don't know if that translates into bogan.
I haven't heard that yet.
Gosh, how do I translate
that? Is it
that?
condescending?
Yeah, it's not a good thing. It's like the stereotypical Aussie person in like, you know, flip-flops, like short shorts, singlet, tradie. Well, I mean, swears a lot. Like, I'm sounding really mean. But yeah, if you're up north, you have a lot more of an Australian accent, right? So it's like a lot more Aussie. Then the further you get down, the more kind of British, maybe. Like the British influence is like stronger. So there's a bit more of that. I'm in the middle in Sydney, so maybe I'm a bit of both.
I love the distinctions.
Yeah.
I suppose just like everything, if it sounds more British, it sounds more informed, educated, proper.
Smart. Mm-hmm.
They've tapped into something in the human brain, apparently, where it's just all over the world.
Yeah.
This is how this works.
People believe them and trust them more because they sound more intelligent.
So funny. Yeah. So I was looking back over your bio, and you work with folks in terms of typing them in Enneagram, consistently running across 6s, and you're a 6.
I am.
I should have said that up front. And who are mistyping, and I have a buddy who said that the 6s are the most common mistype that she sees. And do you experience that yourself? And do you have a theory about that, about why that happens?
Good question. I do. I probably don't experience it as much as other coaches, potentially, because I am a 6, so I know what I'm listening for, and I can kind of dig in if I do a typing session or a typing interview, whatever you like to call it. I can dig into those. I can follow those threads that I think potentially could be 6, but are showing up as 2, or, you know, that's a common mistype, 2s and 6s, sometimes 1s. Yeah, so I will tend to follow those threads and really dig down under them. And sometimes I'm like, because I'm a 6, do I just have a proclivity to see people as 6s? You know, I do have a lot of 6 clients as well, so that's interesting. But I do feel like I don't find them as hard to type.
And that would make more sense to me that you probably see the buzzwords. And another question that's come up for me in terms of 6ness, which I would love your thoughts on, is how 6s experience anger. I've had a handful of conversations, and these may be, I don't know if there's going to be a difference between genders on this front in terms of like male 6s and angers versus females 6s and anger. But do you have thoughts about how you process anger as a 6?
Yeah, I think in the reactive stance that 6s find themselves in, we are often the anger is probably most present then when I'm in a state of like things aren't going my way, I'm not getting what I want, I'm confronted with something that's hard or challenging. And that's when I can vent, you know, the anger, I can allow it to rise up. It's fine. It's sort of natural. Like it just sort of pours out of me if it's with a safe and trusted person that I can express that to. So I find that anger for me presents itself in that space. But then if outside of that, like if I'm with anyone that's not safe or not so trusted, or that I would feel like that anger wouldn't be received or I can't really be myself with, then that's definitely, and the compliant stance, definitely comes out then of like, no, I'll mute that in order to make everyone else feel better around me, or I'll just set that aside until I can express it or verbally process that. Yeah. So does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
I associate control with body types, but a friend of mine, her observation about reactive responsive types is that these are the most controlling of the types in her experience. And so as you bring up control and anger, in my view, go together real cleanly because of what you're saying. If you can't control the situation in front of you, like, how are you going to feel? Well, your will is being thwarted at some level. And so that would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Is it the case that with anger for you or with other sixes that you work with, do you see it being a disguise? Disguise is the wrong word. Like, is it covering up the fear, or is anger a deeper emotion than the anxiety that sixes can sometimes describe?
I think it's definitely connected to the fear and anxiety. Absolutely. Like because I think why we're reacting is because there's something we're afraid of happening, or that we've been confronted with, or that we've been challenged by, or that has come up that weren't expecting. And that then can create an anger response of like, oh, or this is just coming as I'm speaking, blame. Sixes are very averse to being blamed. And if I feel blamed, then anger will come, because I'm like, how can I did everything in order to tick all those boxes or cover every base. How can you be blaming me right now? Like, either it was something that was hidden from my view, that I could not have known. So how can you blame me for that? Like, ignorance. Or like, I did that with the best intentions and so thought through. Everything is so well thought through. So to be blamed feels really hard. And I think anger can be linked to that, because it's like, like immediately, even as I'm thinking about it, I'm feeling that anger kind of rise up of like, don't, like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I think that could be linked to that. And also, the fear, I think, in the other circumstance. And blame, in all honesty, blame is linked to fear too, right? Because we don't want to be like disconnected, because if we're blamed, we can feel like, that's going to disconnect us from that person or from that relationship. What's going to happen if they see me in this light now that they're blaming me for something? What's that going to do to our relationship or to their view of me? And then, the fear of like losing them, the fear of, being seen as doing something, wrong or irresponsible. Sixes are very responsible. So definitely linked to all of those things.
Yeah. I haven't thought about this in terms of the negative emotions that kind of come out when your stance doesn't get what it wants. And I suppose that's what I'm hearing there. But I can think through, I suppose my mind quickly jumped to 4s, 5s, and 9s. Oftentimes when they don't get what they want, I get the sense that there is not just a melancholy, but almost a sense of meaninglessness that could come up. I need to put my finger on this. I'm just free associating now, but I love that as tying that to the stance. I think that's interesting. So I have many friends who are sixes who have difficulty thinking through productively the past. And I was hoping to talk to you on this front of one. I assume you experience this, but I would be curious if you have done work here about tools or practices that maybe get you into reminding yourself of your past capacities, successes. Do you have any avenues into getting into the past that is that on your radar at all?
Yeah, that's great, because the past is interesting. It definitely informs my and other sixes' decisions in the present and any future kind of decision making that we have to make. So that's a clear connection to the past for me. I'm like, I feel very comfortable with the whole, and I think nines are the same, where it's like, this happened in the past, so this is how we make decisions going forward based on what that result was from the past. Whereas it's hard for me to think of a future that may be different to that. Like, but we're doing the same thing. Why would that be any different this time around? Or, or like, and especially positive, like, why would it be more positive this time around? Like, it's probably going to be worse. Or even, so let's make that informed decision based on what happened then. So making future decisions, not thinking about the past is tricky. Do I do anything practically to kind of remind myself that success amnesia that sixes have? Absolutely, yeah. I have that. It doesn't matter how well things are going, how well I've done. It's just like, unless I remind myself or have other, and it's so hard to remind myself, like, it's almost like it would be the equivalent for you, Jeff, of like reminding yourself that you are good and that you do good things, and that you don't have to always critique things that you're doing. It's like that, where it's like, oh, how do I can't remind myself. So I almost need others to remind me for me. So, with my husband, he's a 7. So there's a lot of positivity and a lot of celebrating in his world. So, he's often like, we need to celebrate this, and that's great because I don't naturally think that way. And I'll be like, on to the next thing. Oh yeah, but yeah, that was great. Like, I've just finished doing 3 years of post-grad uni, and that was hard because I've got three kids and a business and all of that kind of thing. So, but when I finished and I did well, he was really like, we need to celebrate this. But I'm like, oh yeah, but now I just need to focus on the business. He's like, no, we need to stop and, celebrate and remember and how well you've done and honor that. And I'm like, oh, okay, but hurry up. Like, it's weird. He's a fast-paced person. I'm not, but still, like, I'm just like, yeah, it's so hard for me to stay present to my successes or my strengths and gifts in the moments and look at those things that have traveled along the way. And I think that links to your question on the past. It's hard to hold that. I went through a lot of seasons of gratitude journaling as like a practice to help me.
Yeah.
And that was really great. That was really, really helpful. And I probably should get back into it again. It's been a really positive and affirming place to kind of look back. Also, the Prayer of Examine, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's basically like, you can do it. It's an Ignatian tradition thing. But basically, you can just look back on your day. Anyone can do it. And you can just look at like where in the Ignatian tradition, they talk about where did you miss love or where did you miss God? But you could say, where did I miss love today? Where did I find love? Where did I experience love today? And it's kind of a stock take of your day. And it's really beautiful. And I did that for a season too, which was super helpful in kind of remembering, going back, acknowledging the good as well as the bad, but acknowledging what was good and how I connected with love, with God, with essence that day. Yeah. So that's something. There are a couple of things that are off the top of my head that have been helpful with sort of going back and counteracting some of that success amnesia stuff that happens with a 6.
That's a fantastic example of intentional practice that would seek to meet, your repressed center, your non-productive thinking as a 6. And it seems to me all the types are going to have practices that can really do that and just need to be intentional. And that ends up being incredibly healthy.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in traditionalists, like the passion or sins of 6s come down to something like fear or cowardice. I want to say that I've seen more language around distrust recently. It's as though the term is kind of up in the air, and being debated. Off mic, we kind of talked about these lists, but do you have a preferred passion for the sixes when you think through the list?
Yeah, that's really good. I do like mistrust better than, fear or cowardice. Cowardice feels ew, like feels ick. I have teenage children, so the word ick gets thrown around a lot around my house. But yeah, I just don't like that. Because what do you think of? What do you associate with cowardice?
I associate a shutting down and almost a chosen resignation with cowardice, but with distrust. I suppose when I think about sixes, the inability to trust one's own judgment and the kind of the reciprocated, I think sometimes you should not trust your judgment on some stuff or not trust other people. So I suppose I'm not sure if it's a like quote unquote like a sin, like as it were, like there's a place for distrust. So I suppose that's where my mind goes, is like I would be curious. I like how do you square that circle, as it were?
Yeah, I do feel like cowardice. I imagine things like running away from hard things. When I actually think that the six does the opposite. They
Correct,
move towards. And so even through fear, we're moving towards the things that we're afraid of because we have to in order to function in this world. And
right.
so cowardice is kind of, in my view, the opposite of that. And so I'm like, yes, there may be moments where we retreat to cowardice to cope, which is kind of what the passions or the vices are of the Enneagram anyway, a retreating to cope kind of mechanism. But yeah, I feel like mistrust, doubt, those things feel more real for me, feel more true, have been something I've had a lot of language around even before I knew the Enneagram. So that I feel way more connected to those words than I do to cowardice. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
Is it the case, I suppose, to return to that, so doubt, I suppose, would fall into that. Is it ever the case that doubt's like a really healthy place to land? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, like, I say this to my coaching clients when we first start a relationship together. I say, we're not wanting to put all those coping mechanisms, vices, whatever you want to call them. We don't want to put them. So say they're in the front seat of a car. If we have this image of a front seat of a car and they're in the driver's seat, we don't want those things in the driver's seat, but we don't want to open the car door and throw them out. We want to just put them in the back seat.
Yeah.
Because they have helped us and they're super helpful and they still help us to survive in the world. But we just don't want them driving things. So I think that there is a place for doubt that can be a protective strategy for everybody. Yeah, not just sixes.
I think that's an excellent answer. What's the phrase? Wonderful servant, but terrible master kind of experience there. So that's good.
Yeah.
I'm real interested in how sixes move into nine space and what your experience is when you get there. I think we may have talked about this before on your podcast, but it seems to me that sixes are one of the types that have the most difficult time getting to their security space and having that experience. Would that be true of your experience, and how do you think about your experiences of going into nine space?
Yeah, going into nine space has been an interesting journey, I would say. Like, I've been working with the Enneagram for 7 years now. So I kind of have some strategies in order to tap into it. But one really interesting story that, if you permit me to share, I was on a cruise for the first time. I've never been on a cruise before, and it was a Disney cruise, so it was fun. It was just me and my husband. Anyway, we didn't even bring the kids, but I love Disney, so that was me, not my seven husband. It was me saying I want the Disney cruise. Anyway, on the cruise, and I got really seasick, like really seasick, and I didn't see that coming. I did have the tablets and all of that sort of thing, but they didn't work. And
Yeah.
anyway, I was very ill for the first day and I didn't know what to do. So I go into my headspace because that's my default. You know, I'm in the head center and I'm going to try and, you know, overthink to fix the problem. So think my way out, I like to say. So, but I couldn't. I'm like, there is no, like, I'm taking electrolyte drinks. I'm double downing on the seasickness tablets. I'm doing everything I can in my logical brain. And then I just was like, I went back to my cabin and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lie down and I am just going to zone into my body. And you know what? I just passed out. I fell asleep for 2 hours or something. And then I woke up and I felt so much better. And I just thought to myself, after that experience, I was like, I felt like I was accessing my body in my 9. I felt like the intuition and the intelligence of my body knew exactly what to do. You just need to sleep, Sarina. You don't need to run around the ship trying to find the best spot to so you don't get seasick. You don't need to, rationalize, strategize. You just need to go to sleep, close your eyes, and just pass out. And so tapping into the wisdom of my body, that was a new experience for me. I find that hard. Like, I'm someone who, I go to the gym. I've always gone to the gym, but it is purely a rational decision to go to the gym. I don't enjoy it. I don't, I bring my earbuds, to listen to podcasts usually, not even music, but my brain needs to be fed and consuming something in order for my body to be able to do exercise and for that to be okay, So because I'm like, well, this feels like a waste of time. It's not. My rational brain says you need to exercise to stay healthy and fit and, to look after yourself. But it's like a cognitive, my body is like, it's so hard for me to tap into my body. So I feel like my movement toward 9 actually helps me to tap into my body and to become aware and access its wisdom. The other thing that came to mind was when so one of my strategies of when I'm feeling stressed, anxious, tipping over the edge of like just looping on thoughts in a really unproductive way, I will go, okay, I need to breathe. Breathing's really big for 6s, really big for me, but I've done some breath work with my clients. It's really, really great. Deep breaths, because 6s often shallow breathe. So, and we don't even realize it. Or sometimes 6s will say to me, and I felt this way too, I feel like I'm holding my breath. Like actually, and I'm not like, but I felt like for 3 days I held my breath.
Yeah.
And so often we have tightness in our chests as well as a result of that. So deep breathing, really, really helpful. And then I will often take a bath. I really love baths and I have that connection with my 9 friends. They all seem to love baths as well. Take a warm bath, have a glass of wine in the bath, read a book, light a candle, whatever, just make the mood. Actually tapping into sloth a little bit in a healthy way for a 6 is, I find, really, really refreshing for me. And because it just slows down all of the mental flurry and gives myself permission to stop and that it's okay. And actually, like, I'm an advocate for self-care now, probably haven't always been, but self-care is okay. It's never selfish. Parker Palmer says that self-care is never selfish. It's taking care of the only resource that we have and that we can control, ourselves. And I love that. But yeah, so settling in, relaxing, tuning out to the world and the worries. I find, so that's my sort of pathway into 9 that I've kind of perfected a little bit over the last 7 years. Yeah, it really helps me.
I think those are excellent answers, and I think that's exactly right. That somehow the 3, 6s, and 9s, I think, have a tool in part. I need to think more about this, but seem to have a tool in part in terms of entering security as you describe, of just naming the center of their security number and intentionally going into those spaces. I'm having a lot of conversations recently with threes who seem to just come alive in a different kind of way when they get into academic work. And similar move there in terms of, especially when they, of all things, especially when they separate it from action in part. I think when it's almost like an exclusive move to their mind, they engage security in a different kind of way. And that's what I was hearing in your response there, is that it's not that your heart doesn't matter, and it's certainly not the case that your mind doesn't matter, but almost like making it intentional. I'm going to really double down on my physicality is something that sixes can do in terms of moving into that space. I think that's real helpful. I suppose the logic would go that nines, if you get into more emotional conversations and the rest, you engage your heart and relationships, that might be very valuable. I need to talk to TJ about that. I have no idea what he would say about that, but do you have thoughts?
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, that when you said that, I'm like, oh yes. Yes, I think that's a natural space for nines to be. Like, I think they love that, like, more deep conversations in my experience, but maybe it's in the action of the prioritizing, making time for those conversations that engage their heart. I think that would be the harder, because it's that moving into right action and engaging heart at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Interesting.
Love that. I suppose to pile on, two of the sixes I'm closest with both grew up in the mountains, and in terms of physicality, the locations they choose to enter, like those end up being enjoyable, restful spaces for them returning to the mountains. They live on the plains now. And as it were, same kind of story.
Yeah, nice.
Bang. I have in my mind that to just talk Enneagram theory for a second, that sixes take in the world through their head, but they don't engage the world through their head. And presently I have a discussion with a handful of folks in terms of how they engage the other two centers. Is it equally? Are they more inclined to push into the relational heart side? Or is it, I suppose my intuition is that sixes are both kind of hold their emotional core and their body at about the same level. They're doing those things for others. Seems to be the way that they sixes commonly are in the world. Do you have thoughts on that in terms of your experience of how you engage the world?
I would say, you know how they like talk about it being a stack, right? Like the head, heart, body, intelligence center stack, that everyone's stack could be different. For me, I think it's probably like head, heart, body. Body would be my repressed, I think, my repressed center. But yeah, I think heart is closer than body for me. Yeah. I do appreciate what you're saying with when we help people, like that the relational and the action are linked. So then it kind of feels like they're together, which maybe in terms of action, that if we separated body from action, I know that they're together in the Enneagram, but if we say, you know, accessing our body in terms of what I was saying, like with the gym or with the bath or with the cruise, as opposed to doing space. If I separated those two out, I would say, I'm more in tune with the doing, probably at an even level, what you were saying, with my emotions, but my bodily intuition, gut instinct, connection, all of that feels repressed. That feels under. Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the language that I've been kind of messing with is, especially for sixes, threes, and nines, that sixes are going to assess whether they're happy in the world based on their relationships, the ways that twos and fours would. Do you relate to that you assess whether or not you feel good in the world based on how your relationships are going?
Yeah, that is a big one. That probably less so now, but that has been a big one my whole life. Now it's probably, I don't know, through circumstances. I've moved a bunch of times, so my relationship network, like I think for the 6 being grounded in community, usually not much change in their communities. You know, they tend to kind of, depending on the 6, but the ones I've interacted with, and in Australia, it's not as big a moving culture as it is in America. Like, I know that,
Sure.
you know, in college, most people move to go to college and then live on college campus or nearby. Whereas in Australia, we don't move for university often. We don't. We stay nearby. You can, but it's not necessary. And mostly people in Australia stay within a vicinity of their family or of origin, or if they have a good relationship. That's best case scenario. And so Sydney was more transient. I lived in Melbourne for 4.5 years, and I found that Melbourne was more so people don't move from Melbourne. Like they still had friends from primary school. So that, which I was like, oh, really? Like that you still see today and you're 30? Like, wow, like I don't have that. And yeah, and interesting. So it depends on where you are in Australia, but Australia is more that way. And for me, moving around, feeling a bit dislocated for the off and on over the last sort of probably 10 years since moving around a few times. In that time, I have had to learn that my well-being, this is like the phrase that I think you're getting at too. My okayness isn't dependent on others. So like, does that make sense? Like
you do believe that your okayness isn't dependent on others?
I think I do now, but I think for a long time I didn't. I believe that my okayness was dependent on others. And I think that can sound very 2 as well, right? Which is why I think 2s and 6s can get very mistyped. But like being like 2 and 9, I think that 2, 6, 9, I think that's probably, anyway, that sitting in that space has made me had to make peace with that process and go, no, my okayness isn't dependent on other people around me. And if I've got loads of friends, if I have no friends and I've got to start from scratch again, making new friends in a new town, well, that's okay. I will be okay. That feels scary, but I've done it now a few times and I know I can do it, and I will do it again and I'll make new friends. Yeah. And that's okay. And it's more for me, Jeff, that the letting go. So the loyalty piece, like for the 6, the letting go of the friends in the different locations, especially if they've become safe people to me. Oh, like really, really difficult. Like I don't want to let people go. Like, wow, so I've got a lot of long distance friends. I will make effort to maintain those friendships at a distance because loyalty. Bottom line.
Sure. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
As you're talking, the thing that comes up to me, like I do hear the desire to transcend needing relationships to feel okay in the world. Because I have the same, like I want to call it a temptation for 2 seconds, but then discount it. I feel the same way about my achievements. Yeah. Like I feel like a lot of my happiness is based on what I'm able to execute and do. And I do understand that can be, in part, a temptation, and finding your happiness and value in those spaces may not always be healthy. But it is the case, like I assume you would agree, relationships are really valuable. Totally. And achievements for some are very valuable. Yep. And finding, like, what is the through line there in terms of self-assessing, am I doing well in the world? You know, if somebody like, how do you think through that?
That's good. I'm glad you brought that up, because as you're saying that, I'm like, I don't want to come across at all like I'm saying I don't need people. Of course I need people. Absolutely. But the attachment that can be stifling. And I think 2s listening would know what I'm talking about. The attachment of like, if this relationship or this group of friends goes south, wow, that feels so scary for me. Like I feel like I've lost my safety net or my grounding. So I had to reconcile that. And do a lot of work in that space for me and on inner authority, but that's a whole nother tangent. But as you were saying about how are those things, like, they're not bad, they're good, we need them, a sense of achievement in things is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And having a high capacity to get a lot done. And it's just that I think it goes back to what we were saying about the driver's seat, as long as it's not in the driver's seat, right? Like, and I think that's what I was saying with my attachment, right. As long as that's not driving my decisions because I'm afraid of losing these people. Yeah.
Are you able to name what should be in the driver's seat?
I would call, like, I've been thinking a lot about sort of the work with the vices or the passions, as like the original language was passions, of vices. Vices is probably more commonly known. But I've been thinking a lot about that, and then how they're kind of this counterfeit way that we are in the world, because when we lose touch of our virtue, which is kind of a little gift of our true self that we get to display in the world, that I would say would be good if that is in the driver's seat, our virtue, or, Russ Hudson talks about essence. He talks about essence. And so that's like our authentic self, true self, authentic self, essence in that space. Yeah, I would say that if that's in the driver's seat, that would be, ideal. That would be the ideal. Yeah.
I need to return to that because, at some point we're doing work on that. But to be honest, I have no comment on that because I have the intuition. So I believe the virtue for ones is serenity. You will, I assume, understand this, that if I put serenity in the driver's seat, I feel incredibly irresponsible. Right, yeah. And that's a hard place to be. And I suppose I don't know what to do with that aside from.
Yeah. That's probably like the pendulum on the right end of that. And so as we're speaking it through, I'm like, we need to have that balance, right? Like, we can also say that pendulum right to that other end of what should be driving us. If it's for you, serenity, and then if we talk about holy ideas, which I don't want to confuse people if they've never heard of that before, but if we talk about that, then it's kind of this concept of holy perfection, which I'm happy to dig into. But it's like, okay, holy perfection, serenity, those two combined, what does that do to your sense of feeling irresponsible? If you kind of hold that.
Yeah. I think spun at its best, the idea that I think is coming out in the holy ideas is something like, not everything is yours to do, that there's an order to the universe that will get achieved, with or without you. And it's best for you to hold things loosely and to take more of a posture of open-handedness in the face of what can be, like their desire for improvement, forward progress, for the world to get its act together can be overwhelming. And that can be, I suppose that could be disheartening. That can cause quite a bit of anger, both at itself and others. And so I suppose that's what I hear at its best. That's what I hear is that one ought to come to the world with a sense that, in our tradition, look, God is in control. It gives you you have a handful of things you need to knock out. And once they're knocked out, then you need to say, you're done.
Yeah.
And be okay with that. I suppose that's my best spin on that.
I like
don't
that.
know if you have thoughts, but
no, I like that.
Okay.
I think that's great. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of this, I feel like it's this overarching worldview shift almost, like the worldview of the one is that, things aren't good. They need to be improved and perfected. And it's my role to kind of play a part in that. Whereas holy perfection talks about, everything begins perfect. and everything is perfect in its essence. And can you be okay with that? And balancing and holding those imperfections as you move through the world.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
So
Yeah.
it talks about that, and then the virtue of of serenity, which I want to dig in with you later, what that looks like for you. How is that displayed in the world? How can you display that through what you're doing, whether it's, all the things you're responsible for, all the work you're achieving, all the good that you're doing in the world, but where does serenity play its part in that? So yeah. Just sort of holding that.
To build on that, I think if it were the case that it was wise to say, this is the world as it is, it's terrible, beautiful, awful, and it's all good, and good in the large sense of complete. If that's how one ought to approach the world and see the world and judge the world, I could see how then serenity would be the correct posture, because the recommendation is, look, you need to be okay with what is. Yeah. I generally have a very difficult time with that, because I think that children are getting abused in our world. That probably is something that ought to be addressed. And we can name countless things, from Gaza genocide to the state. We have a very, I don't know if homelessness is a huge problem in Australia, but it is here, et cetera, et cetera. And serenity seems like not the right place to land at times. So
yeah, that was going to be one of my questions for you, Jeff, because it's like totally, because serenity, like the type ones I've worked with before over the years, all of them have had a similar response to serenity. Like, I don't even know how to access that. What does that even look like? I can't reconcile that. I don't even know where to begin with serenity. It feels so removed.
Yeah.
And so, would you be okay to, explore
to build on that?
your experience of serenity?
Well, so I think that there is, and I get this, there can be what I would want to call a Buddhist interpretation of Enneagram, which is get rid of your desires. And when you get rid of your desires, it opens up the path to your truest self and to your security number. So if I get rid of my desire, which is a primary in the Buddhist tradition, if I get rid of my desire to be good and to do good in the world, the door to serenity opens up very fast. But I don't know if that's healthy. And and so my mind goes that direction, is as a 1, as a 6, as any of the types. What does your healthiest self look like? And is I think the more challenging and interesting, like, what does it look like for you to thrive in your type?
Yes.
What does your type at its best look like? For me, I don't know that serene is me at my best.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your honesty.
So it would be just a challenge to the system as it is. So.
No, I appreciate your honesty, because that has been something I wanted to bring to you today, because I have encountered that with most ones. Like, I think that is really challenging, doesn't feel true to them. And so, like you were talking about with mistrust, distrust, and cowardice, potentially serenity is the wrong word. Do you think that it's just the wrong kind of language around it?
Yeah. It feels like fruit to me. Like it, and sometimes that's what our security move feels like to me as well. It's like, it's something that you enjoy when everything is as it ought to be. But again, I can get rid of all of my standards. If I thought that was healthy, then obviously, if that was what was most healthy, then that would be the right course of action, as it were. And I can see serenity coming into play there. But it seems to me that, I don't know, but as I said, like, there's many things in the world that need to be addressed with passion, with wisdom, with action. And I have a difficult time thinking that it would my best life looks like me being serene. I just can't get there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
It is an interesting, yeah. It's a very interesting one of that vice to virtue kind of pathway.
yeah.
Whereas I feel like, fear, or mistrust, doubt, whatever you want to call, to courage for sixes feels like, yeah, like I don't think sixes have a problem with that. We feel like that makes sense. That's what we experience. That is us in our best kind of expression. We do act in courage on every level, like, whether it's like making decisions without asking 10 people for their opinion, which is then acting on our own inner authority rather than everybody else's, or whether it's like doing something we're afraid of, or doing something in uncertainty, or doing something unplanned or unprepared. That feels like courage. So that feels right. Like I can say, when courage is in the driver's seat along with holy faith, like if they're kind of taking a bit more center stage than the other stuff, then yeah, I feel at my best, and maybe we say it's a combo of like moving into our integrated, like moving into 9. Like for me, if it's like I'm in the 9 space, holy faith and courage, and they're all kind of operating. Interestingly, I've just a question's popped into my mind now. I've been hearing people talk about, when we all have 9 types within us, all the 9 types within us, we just have one that's more, the home base.
Sure.
This idea of the more healthy we are, the more we have all types present or active within us, or more of a scope of the 9 types within us. What's your thoughts on that?
I lean heavily into preferring to see the value of the more individual and subjective. I think that it's and this again, you'll notice the anti-Buddhist kind of posture that I kind of take on a lot of this is like, I don't think we're all made to be one. I think that our diversity is it's what makes our world incredible, is the vast diversity. To make it all a singularity is to take away identity. It's to take away any of the distinctions that make something beautiful. And so my impulse is on the absolute opposite side, to again bring in our spiritual tradition. I think that God has foreknowledge. Before creating the universe, I think God envisions all those who God will make, and intentionally decides to actualize this world with these specific people in it, because they are who they are in their, the unique contributions that they bring to the world. And I love living in that space mentally. This is just a story that I assume, just like, there's a lot of stories that we assume to make sense of our existence, but that's where my mind goes, is like, I want to name there's all sorts of things that we share with all the numbers. So in the back of our book, we actually show that, here are the triads that all the numbers share with all the other numbers. And so there is something that we share with each of the types. 6s are going to be in the head triad with 5s and 7s. 6s are going to share the same stance as 2s and 1s. 6s are going to share the same affect as 3s and 9s. And 6s are going to share the same problem solving style as 4s and 8s. You end up having an anchor in all the other numbers in terms of how you are in the world. And yet, sixness itself is a treasure. It's a gift to the rest of us. If sixness goes away, we lose something incredibly important. And I wouldn't want it to be the case that we blend. Yeah. That was an incredibly long answer to your question, but
that's good.
I apparently have something to say about this. So.
I loved it. I'm glad you said that, because I was just confronted with it literally like last week, maybe just a few days ago. I was a part of running this Enneagram workshop for some students, and the idea of that was brought up, and I was like, how do I feel about that? It's come across, my view for years now, but just I've sort of not thought deeply. So it was good to sort of have this chat with you, because I'm like, I don't know, like if somebody is more integrated, that doesn't mean that they're less of themselves. And as you said, like we're all the same and we kind of lose our uniqueness. I know type 4s listening would hate that thought. So I think it's that we're more of ourselves. You know, in C.S. Lewis, his book, The Great Divorce, there's this line where there was this girl and she's in the kind of heaven space of the journey. Anyway, they're looking at this girl and she's walking through and people are dancing and cheering for her and loving on this girl. And one of the main characters asks, what is, like, who was she? Was she someone famous on earth when she lived? Was she someone who did amazing things? And they said, no, she actually helped people become more of who they truly were on this earth. And being around her brought that out of people. They became more of who they were made to be when they were around her. And I just thought, wow, I want to be one of those kind of people. I want to be someone who brings out your true self. When you're around me, that is more displayed, you know, and I want to bring that out in myself as well. So yeah, I don't know. So I tend to agree with you. All that to say, I think I like people being the fullest expression of who they're made to be, rather than a dulled, muted conglomeration of, like, if that's a word, like every type. So yeah.
Another C.S. Lewis quote on exactly this front is how wonderfully diverse are all the saints and how monochromatic are all the tyrants. The more that you look at those who are truly amazing human beings through the ages, what you see isn't that they're all the same person. They are very, very different and very, very distinct. And their beauties come out because of that. And so the difference between, I mean, I'll just name one tradition, like the difference between a Mother Teresa and an Aquinas and a Saint Francis are light years apart. And yet their humanity is super core, and their refraction of what is most beautiful just comes forth in these people in very, 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 very different ways. And yet, if I were to talk about Alexander or Mao Zedong or Stalin or Hitler or any of the tyrants that we want to name, it's all the same guy. And you're boring. You're just boring because you're the same guy. And so I like that as an image in terms of, you know, the universe that we find ourselves in. Its beauties are found in how much variety there is. And so I tend to have just a strong inclination to go that road.
Yeah, I like that.
Friends, this is just the first half of my conversation with Sarina. The second half is at aroundthecircle.org. Go check it out. The second half of this conversation is actually really great. I commonly will say that, but this was actually a stellar interview. So I do encourage you to go check it out. Sign up for a membership. You get all of our full interviews there. And this is how we signed off. My last question, actually, you had mentioned your Disney fandom. Who is the best Disney character, and why is the right answer Ahsoka from Star Wars?
Oh, Jeff, how did you know? Like, honestly, sorry, I've got to just do something.
Come on, you're a fan.
She's my phone. She's my phone holder, and then I have her.
She's a phone holder
under my under my computer screen. So,
well,
amen.
You may not have noticed, but over my left shoulder, right here.
Oh yes. Is it back?
Love the hell out of Clone Wars.
Me too.
And so that makes my heart so glad.
Oh, me too.
Well, I suppose for all of you on our feed who are night owls, who want to have a fantastic coach with a different cultural perspective, can see through all of the Americanisms and cut to the chase, Sarina is available.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you a bunch, and we'll connect in the future.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.